Hey, welcome to The Explainer. I want you to just think about your day so far. That coffee you drank this morning, the phone that's probably in your hand right now, even the job you're heading to. All of it is shaped by this one massive, pretty much invisible force. And today, we're putting that force under the microscope. We're talking about capitalism, right? It's a system full of big ideas with these huge names like Adam Smith and Karl Marx attached to it. But it's also the reason your grocery bill looks the way it does, and it's the engine behind your retirement savings. So, what exactly is this thing that drives our entire modern economy? How does it really work? And, what are its biggest strengths and its most glaring flaws? So, to make sense of all this, we're going to break it down into 5 clear parts. First, we'll get a handle on what capitalism actually is. Then, we'll look at the 6 main pillars that basically hold the whole thing up. After that, we'll do a quick trip through history, see the different shapes it takes today, and finally, we'll dive into the huge debates that are shaping its future. Okay, let's dive right in. Part 1. Before we can even start to debate this thing, we have to define it. So at its very core, what does the word capitalism actually mean? Well, when you strip everything else away, it's a system that's built on private ownership. That means regular people or companies, not the government, own what are called capital goods. The factories, the tools, the technology you need to make stuff. And this is the absolute key difference from a command economy, like socialism, where the state owns all that and calls the shots. In capitalism, the market is in charge. So what drives that market? What gets people out of bed in the morning to build a factory or invent some new piece of technology? Well, it really boils down to one thing above everything else: the motive to make a profit. And this isn't just a side effect of capitalism. It's the central animating force. It is the fuel in the engine. Now, I know that might sound kind of greedy, but the guy who's basically the father of modern economics, Adam Smith, he argued way back in 1776 that this self-interest was actually a really good thing. He famously said that we don't get our dinner because the butcher is a great guy. We get it because he's looking out for himself. Smith had this idea that when everyone chases their own goals, an invisible hand just sort of guides the market to produce exactly what society needs, almost like magic. So let's see how that invisible hand actually works with a simple example. Think about a baker. Her main goal isn't to be a hero and feed the town. Her goal is to make a living selling bread, right? But here's the thing. Other bakers also want to make money, so they all have to compete. And that competition forces them to either make better bread or sell it for a lower price to get you to buy from them. And the end result? All of us get access to awesome, affordable bread, not because some central planner ordered it, but just as a natural side effect of everyone looking out for themselves. So how does this whole invisible hand thing actually pull it off? Well, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It relies on a set of foundational rules. Think of them as the 6 pillars of capitalism, the rules of the game, if you will. And these pillars all work together to build the architecture of the market. First up, private property. That's the right to own stuff and make money from it. Without that, there's no incentive. Next, self-interest, the personal drive we just talked about. Then you've got competition, which is crucial because it keeps that self-interest in check and pushes everyone to be better. Fourth, a market mechanism. That's where supply and demand set prices, not some guy in an office. Fifth is freedom of choice, for you to buy what you want, for workers to pick their jobs, for investors to back the next big thing. And finally, a limited role for government, which acts more like a referee, enforcing the rules but not trying to play the game itself. But this system, with all its rules and pillars, didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No way. It evolved over hundreds of years, changing with new technologies and new ideas. So let's take a really quick trip through time to see how we got from old-school merchant ships to the crazy global economy we have today. You could say it all started with mercantilism, this phase where nations were obsessed with hoarding gold and silver, and the government had its hands in everything. Then, boom, the Industrial Revolution kicks off. Industrial capitalism. This is the era of factories, mass production, and a whole new class of workers who earned wages. This is where the whole hands-off idea really took hold. But then, the Great Depression showed just how brutal that system's boom and bust cycles could be. That led us into welfare capitalism in the 20th century, where governments stepped in with social safety nets and regulations. And that brings us to today, to the era of globalized capitalism, which is all about free trade, massive multinational companies, and a financial system that spans the entire globe. And what all that history shows us is something really, really important. Capitalism isn't just one single thing. It's not a monolith. It's more like a spectrum. Those rules of the game we talked about? They can be interpreted and applied in totally different ways, which leads to all these different flavors of capitalism around the world. For instance, on one extreme end, you've got laissez-faire capitalism. This is more of a theoretical idea of a pure free market where the government does basically nothing except protect your property. On the other side, you have state capitalism, where the government is a huge player in the economy, owning major companies like you see in China's hybrid model. And then somewhere in the middle, you have welfare capitalism, which is really common in Nordic countries. They mix a free market with really big social safety nets that are paid for by high taxes. All of these are capitalism, but they look and feel completely different in practice. And get this, even inside a single country, there's this massive debate going on right now about what the purpose of capitalism even is. For decades, the winning idea was shareholder capitalism. Economist Milton Friedman was its biggest champion, and his belief was super simple. A company's only job is to make as much money as possible for its investors. But a different idea has been gaining a ton of steam: stakeholder capitalism. This view says a company's responsible not just to its investors, but to everyone it affects: its employees, its customers, its suppliers, the whole community. This is a really fundamental disagreement about what a company is even for. Which brings us to our final and maybe the most important section: the big debates and the criticisms. Because for all its incredible power to create wealth and spur innovation, capitalism has always faced serious critiques about its built-in problems and failures. These arguments usually circle around a few key issues. Critics will say that the system's focus on self-interest just naturally creates huge inequality. They'll point to externalities, costs like pollution that get dumped on the rest of society. They warn about monopoly power, which happens when competition dies out and one company can charge whatever it wants. They talk about worker alienation, the sort of soul-crushing feeling of being a cog in a machine. And of course, they highlight the economic instability, those painful cycles of booms and busts that can completely wreck people's lives. Okay, I know this looks like a math equation, but stick with me because it's one of the most powerful arguments about inequality in recent years. It was made popular by economist Thomas Piketty. R is the rate of return on capital, basically the money you make from owning things like stocks or real estate. And G is the rate of economic growth, the money you make from your labor, from your salary. Piketty's research found that through history, R is almost always greater than G. What that means is wealth from owning stuff grows faster than wealth from working, and over time, that can make wealth concentrate right at the very top, making the gap between the rich and everyone else wider and wider. And then you have the problem of externalities. Let me give you an example. Imagine a factory can make its product way cheaper by just dumping all its chemical waste into a river. The factory makes more profit, its customers get a cheaper product. Sounds good, right? But the rest of us, society as a whole, we pay the price. We get polluted water, health problems, massive cleanup bills. Because the drive for profit doesn't force the factory to account for those external costs. Capitalism can actually encourage behavior that's really bad for all of us. And of course, you can't talk about critiques of capitalism without bringing up Karl Marx. One of his biggest ideas was what he called alienation. He argued that in a capitalist system, workers don't own the products they make. They're just selling their time and labor like any other commodity. And because of that, they feel disconnected, powerless, just a tiny piece of a huge machine they have zero control over. For Marx, the very act of work, which should be something that gives us meaning, becomes a source of misery. So this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? On one hand, you have a system that has, without a doubt, lifted more people out of poverty and driven more technological progress than any other in human history. The dynamism is just undeniable. But on the other hand, you have these huge, real challenges. Inequality, environmental damage, instability, they're just as real. So we're left with this system of paradoxes. It's an engine of incredible growth, but it has these deep, deep flaws. The debate today isn't really about whether capitalism works. I mean, in one form or another, it's pretty much the only game in town globally. The real question, the one we're all wrestling with, is how do we manage its trade-offs? How do we take all of that amazing, innovative power and rein in its worst tendencies? How do we make this whole thing work better for everyone? That's the challenge that's going to define our future.